So what does awakening mean? Is it something you do or something that happens to you? What's the purpose of it in your life? Well, I feel like I'm an advocate for awakening because I've reached a point in my life where I value the spirituality and I'm trying to be happier. And I've realized that things are not going to make me happier. I think Jim Carrey's famous for saying, I wish I could give everybody in the world everything they ever wanted so they would realize that it's meaningless. And I think probably what he means by that is when you identify with just being a body, a human that is a material entity, if you like, then things seem to be a route to happiness, having things. But you realize that you're actually a being, and a ton of sort of emotions is what you actually feel like. And although you may identify happiness with having certain trappings in life, and you may even associate safety or security with having those things, the reality is that sense of security or happiness actually comes from within self. So I often like to think how we all kind of miss the point in life with thinking about materialism will give us security, when just one twist of fate can take away our health, and that can not be replaced with any amount of money. So there are many ways to look for more inner happiness. For example, gratitude for what we do have. And I don't want to say we all have health, but there are things that we all have. For instance, if you're even listening to this video, you can hear it. If you're watching it, you can see it. So just because our priority list is focused around material things doesn't mean that that's actually what we value most. That's sometimes I think almost a societal hypnosis of trying to take our mind off of other things. But awakening is more than just being grateful. Awakening is self-awareness, I think, and it's a way to feel truly heard for who you are, and to find your purpose and soul mission. And because it's framing that in a different perspective. You know, I'm very interested in near-death experiences because to my mind it's one of the times when people are most honest with themselves, and you know, they're not even in their body at that point, so they're not so distorted with the perspective of being a body, and they see a bigger picture. And it almost invariably makes them kinder people focused on doing good, leaving a record, if you like, to be proud of who they are, not what they've achieved, not material wealth. And that doesn't mean that awakening is something that pushes away wealth. I think that's another I don't want to say untruth, but I think it's a stigma that's been placed around spirituality. Certainly when I was young, I remember my father talking about the spiritualist church. His nan used to go. My father was born in 24, so you can imagine he was going a long time ago. And she would say healing should never be charged for. And there was a kind of a stigma around it, and almost a sense that in order to be spiritual you must be pious, and therefore you must be broke, you must be really dependent upon others. And there is that teaching, and I don't want to criticize anybody's way, but I don't think it's essential personally. I like to think spirituality is above all things, as in spirit is just an energy, money is just an energy of exchange, and so I'm neutral on the financial side of things. But for me, the richness is a feeling of fulfillment, and especially in this modern world where anxiety is such a common thing, it's almost a way of existing, that I think we can live better than that, not suffering like that. In fact, I think all that's really happening with anxiety is it's our body demanding to be heard, and our being expressing the discomfort at being so restricted. And so once again, referencing Michael Singer, he talks about a river, the river of life, if you like, and the traumas that we have are like boulders in that river, and they hinder that flow. And if you pile enough there, they can dam that river to some degree, and the river no longer is expressing itself. So our awakening is releasing those patterns of thought and trauma, and they may be so deep we don't even know we have them, but nonetheless they're there. So awakening for me is so important because it's an internal healing. And if we have a physical ailment, inevitably we want to, and people would expect us to want to heal that. But when it's internal, it's not obvious to people, and people may not understand how we're suffering. So I think it's a really high priority to hear yourself, and if you don't, then your body will amp up the message. And anxiety, I believe, is a manifestation of that. So awakening to me is about returning to balance, allowing flow in your life, paying attention to who you are, not what you do, and embracing your being, because we're all incredibly valuable beings, And I think we owe it to ourselves to recognise that divinity within. I hope that goes some way to explaining what I believe awakening is and why I think it's important.